It's pronounced Łódź.
Well, I finally arrived in Łódź after a long, harrowing day, and I'm going to the Manufaktura complex now to find something to eat. Okay, here we are.
We are entering the main gate into the factory complex. The gate is actually a replica, and this whole complex was revitalized and opened in 2006.
I can't believe these people are waiting in such a long line for these snacks.
This large market square originally had factories for weaving and dyeing. Today there are over 300 shops here, and it is the largest cultural, entertainment, and shopping center in Poland.
What an amazing place. This is truly unbelievable. This huge renovated factory complex. Well, life is not easy when there's so many choices here.
This was originally a fire station, and here on the left, that was a power plant using steam turbines. And this was part of a weaving mill where I am going to look for a restaurant. For some reason, the cold weather put me in the mood for Italian food. And as usual, I seem to be the only old fart in the place, but the pizza was delicious.
I just woke up, my first morning in Łódź, and I'm going to show you this apartment. It's the worst one that I've had on this trip. And it does have a tiny kitchen here, and I just made a cup of instant coffee. And you can see there's not much room to get onto that toilet. And the biggest problem is this hot water may be on a timer, because yesterday and today the hot would go off after about 30 seconds, and you had to rinse yourself with cold water. All right, let's get the day started. All right, well, here I am in my room in Łódź, and I'm about to go out to start my day. So I've got a lot of doors to knock on here with museums and places like that, currency change, so let's keep my fingers crossed and paraphrase Otis Redding. I'm gonna knock, 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 knock on wood.
Walking around Łódź, one encounters a lot of murals. These are the result of a foundation that was created in 2009 to promote these murals as a way of changing the landscape or the cityscape of Łódź from a so-called dull, old atmosphere to a creative, vibrant, modern cultural center. The many murals are the creations of numerous international artists who were invited here for this purpose. And so it goes in the modern world. It seems that art and culture is now more valued than the most important industry of mankind, which is child rearing.
Well, I'm on my way to the Poznanski Palace. Look at this beautiful old architecture.
Piotrowska Street is the main drag of Łódź. It's one of the longest pedestrian thoroughfares in Europe and runs about 2.5 miles. It fell into severe deterioration after World War II, but began being revitalized after 1990. The street begins here at Freedom Square, which in 1800 was just a little market. The monument honors the commander who led the Poles to victory in the Battle of Rosswawisa. This is the incredible palace of the Baron of Industry, Israel Poznanski. The palace was completed after his death in 1900. Poznanski built the huge textile complex that a century later was renamed Manufaktura. Here we see the spinning mill, which was the largest building in Poznanski's complex. It housed up to 80,000 spindles. The total workers under Poznanski's employ was about 6,000 people, mostly Catholic. Today, the building houses the exclusive Andel's Hotel, which unfortunately I did not get to see inside, although it apparently is spectacular. So I have just entered the magnificent residence of Israel Poznanski, who became the richest textile industrialist in 19th century Poland. What the? Look at this. Hello?
Hello, ticket is okay?
Oh, my ticket? All right. This was the ballroom or mirror room, but the ceiling was added during World War II. I guess he could stay in his residence here and look out the window and see the workers, the thousands of workers going to work next door. Let me correct what I've said. Although Poznanski was the force behind the building and the funding of this palace, he died before it was completed in 1900 and never actually lived here. Oh my God, it goes on and on and on. Who would have ever imagined there was so much money to be made in cotton mills? Here's another billiard table. Look at these old balls. I bet they're made out of ivory. Fortunately for our elephants, today's billiard balls are cast from plastic materials. Where do I go now? All these books in Hebrew. Now that is a samovar. During the war, the palace was used for an office for the German civil administration. And after that, it was a tax office of the city. The recent restoration of this palace to its former glory was jointly financed by the European Union and the city of Łódź. Rubinstein, he was from Łódź. This must be a pre-war simulation of a Jewish apartment.
Behind me is the Manufaktura restored building, which was once a factory, and that's Poznanski's gate, where the workers would enter every morning.
Although I didn't see it, somewhere here there's an ice rink, and during the summertime there's an actual beach with sand and beach chairs and palm trees. So here in this park, Akalawich, is a monument called Survivors Park, established in 2004 to honor the tragic events from 1940 to 44. And this is a picture about a clinical study on starvation of children conducted in Warsaw in 1942. And yet after the war, our propaganda for big business made Russians the enemy, not the Germans. Damn. The statue behind me is of the famous Polish soldier and resistance fighter Jan Karski. He later said that he wanted to save millions and he was not able to save one man.
So here I am on the top of this ziggurat here, and
This park opened in 2004 and commemorates the survivors of the Łódź ghetto. The Center for Dialogue displays the photos which I just presented. 600 trees commemorate individual survivors.
so there's an interesting old-looking street. Okay, it's been a long walk and some bus rides. I'm getting to this station where Jews were deported to their extermination. And we are at the train depot, the Umschlagplatz, where about 150,000 Jews were deported to death camps. And there are here on display train cars that would have transported them.
When a long line of these cattle cars arrived at the station, the Germans would have filled the cars, 32 people per car, and witnesses attest to the brutality and the speed at which the Germans accomplished this task. In 1939, there were about 230,000 Jews in Łódź. When the Nazis arrived, they established a ghetto, and most of these Jews were put into the ghetto under very harsh conditions. They were forced to work, and many of them starved to death, and eventually most of them ended up being deported to death camps.
Well, I've come to my last Jewish monument for the day. It's sun's going down, and I've taken buses and walked all over the place. But anyway, let's look at this monument to the Jewish children who were taken away from a camp here and murdered.
Correction, I later learned that this place was where Polish children were sent from concentration camps.
This must have been a light, a torch, which is not on.
Actually, I learned after visiting this monument that it commemorates a camp that was established here for orphans aged 3 to 16. They lived in concentration camp conditions and were forced to endure hard labor. Today, the monument is the destination for numerous trips of children. These must be the names of the concentration camps from where the children were taken when they came to this special children's camp here, which went by the name of Little Auschwitz. More of these fascinating old buildings. So this is the stars of Hollywood. And what's this? That's Artur Rubinstein. I think this is where he was born. Huh.
Nauka ze świata, prawdziwszej nie ma. Możecie wmawiać wszystkim, że jest inaczej. Żygam kiedy włączam TV i na was patrzę, kiedy was słyszę.
I'm here with a young Ukrainian girl named Sophia, and we were just talking out on the street, and we had an interesting political conversation, and she's kind enough to sit with me here in a restaurant and talk about her country.
So currently there is a war between Ukraine and Russia. Russia is bombarding all over Ukraine, especially in big cities such as Kharkiv, Odessa, Kherson, Kiev, and there are like lots of injured people who need treatment. There are lots of tanks and like soldiers are all around, and the people are really afraid of everything that is happening right now. And like lots of Ukrainians believe it's a beginning of Second World War.
Really?
And,
Really?
and I actually agree with it, because the situation is there's like a second day of the war, and there are lots of injured people already. So I come from a little town in Zhytomyr region, and currently there are no Russian soldiers there, but as people like believe, suppose, maybe tomorrow they will be there. I mean, Russian tank soldiers and other stuff. We already have to think about living in this situation like war. I mean, my classmate who is 18 currently is in Kiev, and he's waiting for Russian soldiers who are about like starting shooting. Dobrze, przepraszam.
What did he say?
To be a little quieter, because I'm speaking a bit too loud.
So what do you think of Poland, Polish culture?
Polish culture is quite similar to Ukrainian one, because it's Slovak. Like all Slovak cultures are quite similar. Like lots of traditional Ukrainian and Polish dishes are the same, like barsh, or pierogi.
But Russia is also Slavic.
Yeah.
But you say you don't, they don't like Russia, but they identify with Poland or Slovakia.
Yeah. Russia says that it's a Slavic country and they have Slavic culture and yes, they have Slavic culture, so lots of dishes and other stuff are really like similar. I mean, in Ukraine, Poland, and Russia. So, cuisine is really nice. There are some really tasty, good dishes like pierogi, barsh, albo or banush. That's also nice.
When a Ukrainian wants to go on vacation,
Yeah.
do they ever think of go to Russia for vacation?
No, because Ukrainians, they are quite interesting people. They don't like going to Russia. They prefer like vacations on the seaside. They usually choose for their vacation Egypt or Greece or Turkey. Something like that.
What about Odessa is on the sea?
Odessa, yes, but actually Ukrainians don't like spending their holiday in Ukraine. They prefer going abroad.
Somewhere else.
Yeah.
What is this going on?
Przykładowo gdzieś tam osoby studiują to prawo, na przykład muszą Rakowskiego zaliczać, nie? To automatycznie są z nim w urzędzie na cześć.
Z powodu choroby, ale zadzwoniono do nas i no, nie można odmawiać w takich sytuacjach, więc szybko udało mi się przearanżować 4 utwory na gitarę. Mam nadzieję, że dam radę, bo nigdy nie grałam sama z gitarą, ale myślę, że po prostu trzeba było i nawet jak się pomylę, to było warto.
Well, I've changed to this B&B hotel, and it looks great compared to the Airbnb dingy room I just left. Look, it's got a TV. It's got a replication of the mural of Artur Rubinstein. Wow, look at the shower. Wow. I'm going to be civilized today.
Well, I'm starting out my sightseeing on the Saturday morning in Łódź, and I'm in front of the mural of Artur Rubinstein, who was born close to here. Looks a little bit goofy, like his bow tie. So nearby we see an example of modern buildings juxtaposed next to old decaying buildings that have fallen into desuetude. We'll continue our walk to a renovated power plant. Now they refer to that complex as EC1, and we are approaching here a modern train station.
This station opened in 2016 and replaced the old station that was nearby. This new station is underground.
All right, let's get out of the cold for a minute or two and go into the station. Ooh. This is crazy. It's a Saturday morning. I'm in this huge modern train station. Maybe I'm missing something. There's like no one here. Well, let's exit this huge modern but uninhabited complex to see another part of the revitalization project that started here around 2007 with an old electric factory that stopped supplying electricity in 2001 and fell into disrepair, and now it's been modernized and renovated, completely revitalized, or whatever you want to say for it, into a cultural complex which they refer to as EC1, the name of the old electric factory. And that's right out the door here. That's this thing over here. We can figure out how to walk over there. Oh, there are two women way down there, so I'm not the only one here. And no, I can't go there. There's a gate. What the? Well, I finally made it to the School of Cinema, or Cinematography here.
Actually, this is a museum of cinema, and it is housed in the former palace of Karol Scheibler, who was one of the richest industrialists in Poland in the latter 19th century. This is the only museum of its type in Poland. The museum's most valuable exhibit is this stereoscope viewer, which was built around 1900. This is the palace of Karol Scheibler, who became one of the richest industrialists in Poland in the latter 1800s. He basically created a whole town centered on the textile industry. In 2012, a revitalization program was launched to renovate the historic buildings into mixed residential and commercial space. Here, for example, we see a dancing school, and I bet you they teach pole dancing there. And incidentally, around the corner is the Bordeaux Swingers Club.
Well, I'm looking for the mill. Walking through this park, which has all these nice things for children. The old building looks like it's been renovated, and we're entering some of the complex here. So let's go see. Well, it appears that people are actually living in this building.
The building straight ahead houses restaurants and a barber shop, and that large building is a design center.
Okay, this was called, or is called Priest's Mill, and you can see that these were workers, homes for the workers to live in these small buildings, and apparently many of them are continuously occupied, although that one there looks like it's slated for a re-renovation. And you can see so many of these have been renovated as part of a massive revitalization of this whole complex.
And this was Karol Scheibler's cotton spinning mill. It's an enormously long building and was built in 1872 of reinforced concrete to prevent vibrations caused by running machines. It had a steam engine in the center which drove the workshops. In total, there were 70,000 spindles. Today, the building houses hotel suites and high-end loft apartments.
Okay, so behind me is a residence constructed about 1875 for Carl Scheibler's daughter, Matilda, and her husband. And now it houses a museum. That's Carl Scheibler. His daughter, Matilda, and her husband, Herbst and Herbst.
Before World War II, the owners of the palace fled and they took all the art and furnishings with them. After the war, the palace was used by various public institutions, including a kindergarten, and fell into a state of devastation. Then in the 1970s, the villa was taken over by the Museum of Art in Łódź and carefully restored. The rooms, the furniture, and the wallpaper, too, were restored to what it must have looked like at the end of the 19th century when it was inhabited by the barons of industry. The Herbst Palace Museum has won numerous awards over the last decade or so for the quality of its restoration.
Connected to this palace and the museum is this cafe, a little coffee shop, where I'm going to indulge in a cappuccino. Here's more of this development. You can see some buildings, like this one, are empty, and here are newly rebuilt ones. Now here on the northeastern corner of this park, which by the way is the oldest park in Łódź, is a Pomerania which apparently houses the oldest palm tree in Poland. But I don't think I have the energy to do this one now. And I also saw the big palm court in Poznan, so that's enough. This thing about being my age is I get to ride all these trams and buses for free, so I'm just jumping all over them. I'm entering a courtyard linking the two main streets here downtown that had a rundown hotel that was later replaced with tenement apartments, and it was completely covered with shards of mirrors by a woman whose daughter was diagnosed with retinoblastoma and was treated with chemotherapy, which restored her sight. And in the same way, you might say this was a transformation of this dingy courtyard with all these mirror pieces. So let's go take a look at it. Wow, they really are shards of mirrors. Yeah, and there's some sort of cement grout in there.
Because these mirrors are, you can see.
This gives me an idea of how to renovate one of my houses. That would be a clever thing, wouldn't it? All right, well, I guess this, in
merges onto Piotrkowska Street. Okay, on my last night in Łódź, I think I'm going to try this Jewish restaurant, Imber. Well, I got the salmon dinner here.
Now I'm here for my dreaded COVID test. If it is not negative, I'm in a pickle.
Well, guess what? The result of my COVID test was negative. This is a major relief for me. So I think that I'm now out of the woods. Well, I'm on a first-class train on the way back to Wrocław, and I got my negative COVID test result this morning. So I think that I'm out of the woods, and I'm definitely out of Łódź. Well, I finally arrived at my hotel, which is about a half-mile walk from the airport, and I have to get up early in the morning. But anyway, the room looks very nice. Looks like it will do the job. And the bathroom looks great. All right. Well, after a restless night, I did make it to my plane. And after a long, long day of travel, I arrived back home. I will say that this was a good trip. In the 2.5 weeks I was in Poland, I feel that I saw quite a bit, though I'm sure that there was more to see than what I actually did see. C'est la vie.